Hey everyone, Chris Haddon, Jason Balin, co-founders of REI360.net here with the REI360 show. Today we are talking about the pros and cons of partnerships in real estate.
We see so many partnerships inside of our business, that are sometimes put together for the wrong reason. Maybe someone's got some money or someone has a deal or, they want to manage construction. So we're going to give you some quick tips of exactly when and when not to jump into partnerships.
When it comes to the idea of partnerships in real estate deals, what would you say is the right situation when you might want to consider a partnership instead of doing a solo mission?
Good question. And it's funny because I think real estate in general, there's a lot of partnerships happening more than any other kind of business transaction or business deal. It is very common. And typically the reasons are, that you create partnerships is to find somebody with money, maybe find someone with a deal, someone that understands the construction and will do construction for you, or just overall managing a transaction and just putting the whole transaction together.
So people can bring different resources or skill sets to the table in order to make a good deal happen, because it does require a number of different skill sets, different things.
Exactly, and there's so many times that someone has a great deal, but they just don't have the resources to put it together. They don't have the money, they don't have this. You're right. I mean, it's in our line of work as lenders. There's so many deals that come to us, and people have a partnership. Either it's two people buying a property together, or they create a new entity, and they have separate certain parties being involved in that entity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely see it a lot that people will have identified a property, but they won't know how to run construction, or it's very, very common too that people have seen a property they want to acquire, they can manage a job, and they need the money.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the people with the money are not going to be the people with the boots on the ground.
Exactly. And I would say the ones that we see really just blow up all the time are the ones that just people aren't communicating correctly, and they're scrambling to, real estate deals have to close quickly. They're scrambling to get the deal together. The guy has the deal. Oh, hey, you put up the money. Great. They don't talk about the fundamentals or exactly what everybody wants out of that transaction. And if they do talk about it, things change in real estate. You make less money than you think, and they don't have any backup plans. And we see so many partnerships that just go sideways because, number one, improper expectations. They had, there was miscommunications throughout it.
Right.
And, people's goals change. In 6 months from now when a property sells, what I want out of it and what you want out of it may be different.
Yeah. First things first, define exactly what the deal is in terms of who's bringing what resources, the amount of ownership of that deal or the company that you're going to have, and who's responsible for what throughout the process, because that does change. It's different. Like whatever it is, document it in some way. Ideally, if you're doing an LLC and you have an operating agreement, that would be number one, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can just be anything that's on paper that you can refer back to in the future if things start to change, which they often do.
Exactly. And like you said, it has to be papered. It can't just be a handshake. I mean, we've been involved with a guy with a transaction who put up, gap money, which is like secondary money behind, he brought money to the table. We did a loan, a first mortgage, and a guy put up money to the borrower, and then have some back end split. It was never documented. I mean, I hate to say it, but this guy could be screwed out of the money, and just like that, because the deal went sideways. So if a deal goes bad, even if it is documented, you're still going to run into problems. It could potentially run into problems, but at least you have something there. You could potentially go after each other in court if you want to. But more importantly, nobody wants to sue anybody, especially on these measly small real estate transactions. Yeah. So just make sure you have an open line of communication throughout the entire process, so you can work things out before problems occur.
Let's talk about a couple of those scenarios, a couple of the pitfalls, the things to watch out for, the situations that we've seen, because we see a lot of them, the ones that have gone sideways. So there was one recently, and it's a common thing if you get a contractor and a guy with money, right? Yeah. And you say, we're going to do a real estate deal together. Well, they obviously bring different resources to the table, which is a good thing, but they might, depending on how the situation goes, we've certainly seen it that the contractor's running the job. He doesn't have any skin in the game financially. The money guy has all the skin in the game, but he might not be hands-on. He might not even be in the area.
He doesn't have the sweat equity in the game.
He doesn't have the sweat equity in the game. He might not have control of the transaction, like actually being able to see what's going on the property every day. And we've certainly seen it that if the job goes over budget, over time frame, it looks like there's not going to be a great exit and a big windfall. In other words, it doesn't look profitable anymore. The contractor who doesn't have any money in the situation can disappear, or maybe just be in poor communication, or maybe put the job on the back burner and work on something else. And then the money guy, oftentimes who is borrowed from us, is saying, wow, now I have to take over this property, I wasn't planning on this, whatever. And I mean, we've seen that a few times this year.
That's probably the most common we see. And again, even if the contractor, typically the contractor comes into place and says, listen, I'm going to do all the work, I'll do all the sweat equity, I'm going to do it at cost. Well, that's all fine and dandy until all of a sudden, there's no money left into the deal because you can't sell it as high as you want. You have no incentive to stay in. All he's out is sweat equity. He's not out anything else. So we'd encourage, obviously, someone to put something in the game. Just something. Just some skin in the game, not just sweat equity. That way. And also related to that situation, that topic, there's different personality types for different types of people. Sometimes it's good to have a different personality type than somebody else. Sometimes it's good to have the same personality type as somebody else. But it's more importantly, you need to understand the personality type of that person so that you can, relate to them, and you can talk to them correctly. The contractor who has only sweat equity, he say, well, screw you. You put up all this money, but I'm the one here.
I'm doing all the work.
Yeah, I'm doing all the work.
Hard.
And it's hard, exactly.
Right.
And on your end, it's saying, well, you're right, but, at the end of the day, you're just out time. I'm actually out money. And on the other end, it's very hard to do partnerships with someone with the same personality type. You have two dominant personalities, freaking going at each other's head every day.
Right.
That's extremely difficult as well. So, those, we don't want to really kind of harp on just bad things because there are a lot of good partnerships that are out there. But, just keep in mind that, you really got to make sure, you put the right things in place, legally and communicating on the front end so you don't run into any problem issues.
Yeah, define everything up front, and if you can if you can speak from experience and say this might happen, that might happen, like a money guy could be smart by saying, look, this is going to be a lot of work, and if it goes well, we're going to make a lot of money, but don't be surprised when you do all the work and I don't, because that's the deal. I'm putting up the money and you're not.
Exactly.
Be prepared to do a lot of work. Don't come back later on and be like, oh, I just did all this work. Like, that was the deal. So let's be smart and be prepared for that conversation up front. Yeah,
and let me add one other thing to that because, this is all about partnerships being extremely hard and a lot different than most people think. Mm-hmm. Another way, instead of just creating a partnership and, being a business partner, is figuring out a way to be more of a service provider for somebody. Saying, hey, you brought in the deal, that's great. I want to compensate you for that and let me just run it from here. Or you brought in the money. You're not going to be a partner. You're just going to be a service provider. I will pay you. I'll pay you something like that. So instead of having some sort of partnership where you each kind of, get a little piece of it, treat it as just a straight, service provider. Say, hey, you're doing the construction. I appreciate it. Instead of you having a piece of the deal, why don't I just pay you a premium for your services and things like that.
You don't have to be partners in every deal.
A lot of people feel like they do though in this real estate space, and we've always, think about when we do joint ventures with people. Our joint ventures product is we're going to be the lender and we're going to have some sort of participation on the back end where we get a fee. It's still going to be your project. You're running the show. We have all of our stuff aligned on the front end. So
yeah, just a different way of collecting fees. We're not going in as equity partners owning the thing.
Exactly. So you want to talk about some pros of partnerships?
Absolutely.
And what good ones look like. Obviously, in a perfect world, when you go into a partnership, you always think they're going to be good. You wouldn't go into it if you didn't think it was good. And obviously, key things are communicating, trusting another person that they're doing the right thing. A business partnership and a business partner is meant to be, someone who you feel is better at something than you are, or someone that you feel is bringing more to the table than you are.
That has skills that you don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to duplicate yourself and do the same thing. So
that's just two of the same person. I saw one recently, and they're newer investors, and they're clients of ours, and they've been in here for meetings and things like that. And it's a guy and a girl. And they're just business partners. They didn't have any kind of previous relationship until they started doing real estate deals, and they're just about to exit their first one. And they're different people. Like the guy, he's more of the visionary. He has more resources. He's more of the business type. And she is like the pit bull, like cracking the whip on the contractors and on site every day, and kind of like what you wouldn't think would be the case, but they work very well together. And they're about to exit their first deal, I think, with a nice looking number. So that was kind of an unlikely partnership that seems like it could be a good fit long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you, that know Chris and I, we've been business partners since 2007, and the reason that it's worked is, obviously we trust each other. We've split roles, so we each have our own roles that we're responsible for.
Yep.
And even though I may think that I may do something that's his responsibility differently than he does, and vice versa, we both have a trust that that other person is doing it the right way. So, which is extremely important. If you bring in a partner and you're trying to go in there and then manage a partner, or say you should do this, you should do this. I mean, there's one thing with having open lines of communication and maybe working through challenges, but at the same time, you need to trust that person that they're doing it the correct way and leave it be, so you can spend more time on your own stuff.
Yeah, trust is huge, and we saw a partnership dissolve over the summer. Some guys that we know, and yeah, they didn't trust what the other one was doing, and there was all kinds of backdoor arrangements and some poor communication and some things that, and luckily they wound it down and got out clean and no harm done. But trust is huge. I mean, without that, it's hard to even get into the rest of it, skill sets and resources and everything else, if a certain level of trust isn't there. And that is built over time too.
Yeah,
you don't 100% know up front how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I would say moving forward, if you're a real estate investor and you've considered taking on a partnership, the few steps that you should take is, go out to lunch with the person, get to know them more on a friendly basis, not just on a partnership basis, understand their core values, where they want to be, what they want out of this project. Do one project, certainly define what roles each person is going to be responsible for. Have your game plan and have a backup plan and have another backup plan, and have all things in place, because when you have this imaginary dollar figure in head that everyone's going to make, it's all fine and dandy,
easy to make a partnership
but that always changes and challenges always come up, and you want to make sure that when those tough times do arise, you can work through them appropriately.
Good stuff. Very, very good advice. Partnerships in real estate can be a great thing, but you got to go about them the right way. Thanks for checking out the video today. Please check us out anytime, hardmoneybankers.com, rei360.net, or on social media, #the REI360 show. Peace.
Thanks.